Or are you going to want to record this?
About to, yeah.
Well, okay, we gotta
Do the
start over
intro,
like
yeah.
it's a brand new thing. Are we ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. Hey everyone, welcome back to Quality Matters. I'm your hostess, Darcy Chambers, back here with my husband,
Kyle Chambers.
co-host. And we have a special guest returning, Dr. Rob Pennington.
So happy to be back.
Okay, so we're laughing because we're recording these back to back, but
Yes.
we have to pretend like they're a few weeks
Oh, you blew the cover.
Well, if you listen to any of our episodes, you know that we don't take ourselves very seriously. We're kind of
No.
a
Just have
joking
fun.
group. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first one went so well while we were sitting here talking, we decided to record another
Like,
one.
we can't stop.
So we're going to go for round two. And Kyle had something he wanted to bring up, but I made
Yes.
him stop so we could start
Yes.
recording first.
Okay, so I'll start now?
You can start
Okay.
now.
So, we started talking last one a little bit about communication. And communication is almost always the last procedure that everyone writes. It's usually just some fluff that's thrown together with very little thought applied to it. And it's about internal communication, customer communication, supplier communication. And in my experience, people do a very, very poor job of talking to folks and communicating their ideas, communicating their needs, and communicating when problems occur. I can only imagine you've seen this in your experience
True.
as well.
What's your insight about why you think they have that difficulty?
It's very hard to define.
Okay.
I can put a number next to customer defects. I can put a number next to my revenue. I can put a number next to my efficiency. I can turn all those boxes green. I can't make a communication box turn green. And people like those boxes that turn green.
What's the criteria for success? That's the analogy. What is it you want in the receiver of your communication that would be like the green box turning
Right.
green? What would that be like? What kind of reaction would you like?
See, and that's where even I have a hard time
Okay.
defining it here. Is let's say that we're talking about supplier communication, supplier relationships, right? The most detail that I usually find is that someone identifies maybe a single point of contact, but what information do we need to communicate on each of these? How do we need to do it? How do we need to handle conflict? And I think that's probably the key piece for us to see people fail, is no one has any idea how to handle conflict.
That's true. And we talked a lot about that.
Yeah.
Which we can go into further. But what I'm wanting to see is that there's some need your client has that you're trying to meet.
Right.
One of the things I'd recommend is that be very clear up front and confirmed.
Okay.
That you are saying in your words
Right.
what they would agree with.
Right.
And a lot of times the problem is with expertise, we have jargon.
Yes.
We have technical phrases.
Yes.
And you really have to learn to speak in the words of your client. And in particularly, the things that they worry about. So what is keeping them up at night?
Yeah.
What are they worried about when they drive into work? Those phrases are the ones that will register with them and have them be more curious about what you have to offer. So for instance, for many years, my focus was on reducing the resistance to change. Right? Wow, everybody needs that. But that's not what people are thinking about.
No.
Nobody's sitting up, boy, I need to reduce my resistance to change.
Amen.
So it was actually a teaching point.
Right.
It wasn't a marketing point.
Right.
So what I learned to do is you have to interview your client enough to find out.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about, pulling stuff out. And so what I learned is my potential clients, which are corporate executives, performance is it. Performance. Now they have lots of ways of defining that.
Right.
And what they want are practical tools. So it took me years, decades, to get to these phrases that are the ones that my potential clients are worried about, are concerned about. So in an organization, you have different departments, and they have their own languages.
Yeah.
And they have their own ways of doing
100%.
things, and yet they need the other departments to either implement or collaborate or partner. And so you need to learn enough about the other department to know what their needs and concerns are. Because if what you're doing doesn't somehow meet their needs or concerns, they don't have any motivation.
Right.
In fact, they have more resistance. So, yes, as an expert, you have to know what it is you're going to ultimately want to achieve.
Right.
But there's a process of kind of laying the foundation for getting there.
Right.
And so making sure not only that you understand the needs, but they experience you understanding the needs would be an important part of that.
Right.
The other thing you brought up was conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me more about what kind of conflict do you see happening? Where, in what form?
So I've
You're
got
not talking about people arguing with each other, are you?
No, more of battling back and forth about requirements. Each being convinced they're correct on their technical laid out requirements.
Great. Now, notice what I just did. I got more information.
Right.
I could have taken what you said and went off on what I thought it meant, but now I know precisely what your concern is.
Right.
So you have two groups. They each have a different value, maybe.
Yeah.
They might actually have different marching orders from their bosses.
And they do.
And what's fascinating to me is they still think they should be working it out at their level.
Yes.
And
So you just get lots of headbutting.
yeah, and then what happens is they go and complain up the chain how uncooperative the other people are. They're the bad ones.
Yes.
See, and by the way, we learned this in our family. So when do your kids complain about the other kids ever?
Right.
No. We
They
have
go and
age
tell on the others.
Right.
Yeah. So we do that as an adult too.
Yeah.
So what we have is a process of where we want people to go through that initial process, but when they get to the place where we're not making an agreement, you really got to implement some of these models that we have at successfulworkrelationships.com,
Okay.
like the 6 stages of reaching an agreement. But there's also one about interface resolution process. We even have a flow chart.
But see, these are things that are easier in our profession to sell, because this is something that I can put on a paper and say, this is how I need you to attack things when
That's
you have a
true.
problem.
So, for instance, let's say you two are representative of these two groups that have
Right.
these. And let's say I'm your supervisor. Okay. Typically, you would each come to me individually and complain about the other.
Right.
So, what our model says is you've gone through your own process of making sure you each understand the other point of view, because when you come to me, you come together
Right.
and you explain to me her point of view to her satisfaction. And you explain to me his point of view to his satisfaction, and where you have a difference that from each of your understanding, you were supposed to uphold
Right.
this responsibility, this value, etc. Now it's like you're handing me the baby to split. But people don't know how to do that or don't know that it's right to do.
Right.
And so the organizational dysfunction gets stuck in these unresolvable conflicts that people don't even want to like let anyone know or something. And it's happening all the time.
It does, and not just within an organization. And I've got two examples. One, they've some internal communication problems, and the other one, they've got terrible communication problems with their suppliers.
That's true.
And it's the same type thing.
But if you can't do this internally, it's hard to do
It
across
is.
the boundary.
It is.
So what did you think about the process I was suggesting about how to bring it up the chain?
No, I like it, because that's what I was thinking here. Is that I guess indirectly, I've been trying to suggest the same thing, but not worded quite so
Well, I thought a lot about it.
is
He's got a few years on you.
just a little bit,
And, 30 years of marriage counseling. So,
which goes a long ways, I'm sure.
so what did you like about it?
No, I like, because you have to get yourself in the other person's point of view, because either you accept they're trying to do their job to some good measure, or you accept that they're not.
Yeah.
And that's the way that I've always seen it. And so I would much rather assume they're trying to do their job,
Yes.
and we're just failing to agree.
Yes, because otherwise we take it personally.
Yeah.
And this is a human thing. Anytime we feel uncomfortable, we make a judgment something's wrong. If I'm uncomfortable, something's wrong. If someone's doing something and I feel uncomfortable, what they're doing is wrong.
Right.
But we don't just judge their behavior, we judge their motive. Why are they being like that?
Oh, yeah.
Why are
Yeah.
they doing that to me? Being disrespectful, not being appreciative. Now we take it personally, and then we react, and now we're in our corners. And that happens so easily and so quickly.
It does.
And we lose the experience of valuing and respecting and appreciating each
Yeah.
other. And that really is most important in learning how to deal with disagreements.
Well, I'm kind of looking here and thinking, one of the things that I try to tell folks so often is document every nonconformity you can. I'm not going to say no matter how small, because some things really get pretty petty, but document nonconformities the small ones to the big ones. So if you've got a supplier that has, 20 nonconformities in the last quarter, that's not your ammunition to beat them over the head. That's to try to figure out, hey, look, they have their own unique independent organization completely separate from you. Why are they doing it this way? Could you feed them different instructions?
Yeah.
And this is where I have a hard time sometimes selling, and I think a lot of other quality managers do as well, because I'm just putting myself in the shoes of the quality manager here, is how do I put a metric to that? How do I put a scorecard to that?
Well, one of the things that's in the way before you get there is being able to find out what the challenges, problems, and risks they're seeing of what you're recommending.
Yeah.
Typically, we don't ask the question.
Yeah, true. So
Okay,
true.
and now it becomes an easier conflict because they don't know how to collaborate and say, well, here are some problems and challenges. They just go, no,
Yeah.
that won't work.
Well, and I feel
We
like
can't do
in
that here.
today's world, if you ask a question, then it automatically puts, even if it's a tell me more or what, it tends to put people on the defensive. I feel like people in our society are so sensitive to everything. It puts, I mean, even in social situations,
Yes.
there's been, situations where we've had conflict, and Kyle and I will both say, well, why don't we all come sit down? Oh, we don't need to do that. We don't, and they don't want to sit down with a group and another person and have a conversation.
Yeah, it's nice if everyone knows what we're talking about and how to do it well, but but it's still valuable if only one person does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so just this idea of as soon as you notice some resistance, stepping back, breathing, relaxing, the speedthroughstress.com stuff, and start asking more questions, but specifically asking, what are the challenges, what are the problems, what are the risks you see in the direction I'm suggesting? This is a great way to bring up differences of opinion.
Right.
Then a leader's role is really, I think, majority is facilitating differences of opinion. So if you're leading a team, most of the time, you would like the team to make a decision. If it's only you making a decision, then everybody's brain was deadened, and they're just waiting for you to tell them what to do. And they're probably going to not watch out for you when you're about to stumble.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, I think all of this is very valuable when you ask Kyle about what conflicts is he seeing with the supplier situation. It took him a second to think about, he didn't even know exactly how to describe it. And I think back to, one of the demos I went to with you when you're trying to demo software, it probably would be more valuable to go meet, because like you said, each department, and with us, each department has what they're wanting out of our software. And if you go meet with everybody, then you ask one person a question, well, somebody else is going to jump in before this person has time to think about what they really want.
Yeah.
Even if I'm invited to just do a training or a presentation, I want to do some interviews. If I can do a survey, I want to do that, because it helps me understand the words that are being used in describing the area I'm talking about, and I'll have a greater chance for having an
That's
impact.
True. I run into that a lot because different industries, they'll talk about the exact same thing but use totally different words. Totally different words. You've got the same issue.
But, I've made mistakes too. I mean, the tendency is we're given a task, so let's go off and complete the task and then go and deliver it to who's going to be actually implementing it, as opposed to let's start by asking them more about the problem that we think this could be helpful to.
Right.
Because if, again, they don't experience us understanding their problem, why would they think we have anything that would be of value?
I would imagine that the pushback you get on that is it takes a lot more work up front.
True. But
you
the
have much higher
chances,
success completion.
absolutely. Or we know where the challenges are.
Yeah.
So it's like, do you just want to throw some money at something, or do you want to make a difference?
Right, and I think that's a big problem for what we do is, we help them develop their quality management program, and we have the software, but so many times they want, like I mentioned earlier, they want Kyle to do it for them, but then it's not theirs, it's his.
True, but I think there may be an option there for how you interface in a supportive way where you're not doing it, but you're getting paid to monitor, support, coach them doing it.
We were just talking about that yesterday.
We were
Just
actually.
between us.
And that might be new to you. That might be a different role. One of the things I'd recommend you do is find someone who's doing it that way, and see what you can learn from them. So I'm past president of the National Speakers Association. because I want to be around the people who are doing what I want to be doing and doing it better than me.
Yeah.
And so the more you can explore when some company has a need and they're looking to you to fill it, where's a negotiated option? So you may not want to come in and do it, but you might want to be the person, and you might end up even making more money for less time than coming in and doing it, to be the person who's always kind of there for them to call, and you get paid every time they call. And you're on a kind of retainer. Those are wonderful things to have. So one time I had a project, and I divided it over the number of months of the project and just had them pay me that per month. At the end of the project, I said, gosh, it would be okay just to continue at this monthly rate and just see how it goes, and you can cancel at any time. And they said, sure. That lasted 5 years.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, this goes to the same topic I started with, this communication of it's a failure on my part to really understand what it is you're really needing. Are they just afraid to do the work and would rather me do it, or is there a deeper need that I've not gotten to yet?
So you may need to do a little bit more of a diagnosis and have them pay you for that to understand what their capabilities are, because they would like it to be internally controlled. And the bad thing you could say about having me is that then I'm gone. Then what? So let me see what we can do to support the people who are there doing it.
Good point.
And give them a proposal.
No, that's a good point. Good point.
So anything else? How much time we got?
I think we've got 3 minutes.
3 minutes left.
Okay. So everyone is going to have conflict. It's inevitable. What you want to learn how to do is get good at dealing with it. And the main thing I want everybody to learn is just to ask more questions.
I agree.
Just to ask more questions.
You can't lose by asking more questions.
No, and it does require some humility.
It does.
You have to be willing to admit that you don't know everything.
It's hard.
And you have to admit that you have a tendency to think you do. That no matter what we think we're right about it, or we would not be thinking it.
We've never run into that before, have we?
And I think, as adults, it's one thing, change it, don't change it, but if nothing else, teach your kids.
Amen.
And that's what we
Well, that's not going to happen by how we say it. It's going to happen by how we do it.
I totally agree.
I remember my daughter, I noticed I was upset because she never apologized for anything. And what I realized is that neither did I. And so rather than try to teach her about the importance and value of it, I really started looking for every opportunity I could to do that. And it took her about 2 years, but I noticed her doing it. So look at the people who you're what is the thing about take the log out of your eye before you take the splinter out of theirs? So there's always lessons we can learn from other people's unlearned lessons.
True.
Yeah.
Very true.
Our 8-year-old, the last week or so, I've started hearing him say, so what I'm understanding is.
Yes.
What I'm hearing you say is. And the first time he said it, I was like, wait.
Go give that guy a hug.
What just happened here?
Bravo. How rare is that in any person?
We learned. We waited too long with our 11-year-old, so
they're already cooked.
We got it. No, we're still working on him.
Yeah.
You got time.
He's
You got
still in
time.
the oven.
Well, there's always time when he's going to want something. And that's a good time to begin making agreements. Because, when a kid's born, what % responsibility do you have for him? 100%.
Right.
And there's some time when you want them to be 100% responsible. But in between there, you've got to make some transitions where you move from being the one who's responsible to be more of a consultant coach, asking them, so what are your choices? What are you going to do? So it's no longer your choice. You're no longer responsible. They get to make the choice. They get to deal with the consequences of that. And you'd like them to experience that before they leave.
Yes, absolutely.
No, I like it. I like it. I guess I'll kind of wrap up on this point, because this is kind of where I started. Is communication is one of the hardest things as an auditor, as a consultant, as anything, for me to work with folks, because you can't turn that. There's no box to turn green. But I think there's some valuable takeaways here of what data are you gathering from the other party before you make a decision. How many contact attempts have been made before a complaint was filed? you can add some, because people
that
have
gives
to
you
have some
numbers.
tangibles. Yes, you have to have some tangibles. And whether or not someone's tallying on a spreadsheet, that's not what I'm asking for. But you put something there so that when you as a leader have a conversation with your purchasing manager, your production manager, whoever it is, you have some talking points from that procedure that are in the right direction.
Right. And people can learn more at successfulworkrelationships.com.
We will make sure to leave all the notes.
There's a
in
little 3-minute video on how to empty another person of their ideas so there's room for yours.
Oh,
That's
interesting.
I got to check that out.
Oh, whoops.
Whoops. I guess that's our beeper to say
Time's
we're done.
up.
Thank you again. Thank you
You're
very much.
wonderful.
This is awesome.
Thanks.